Alright, what's up world? Today we'll be looking at the photographic exposure um, node, and what that does basically is lets us treat our cameras just like a real world camera. And and with that, let's get started. Now if you're wondering how I have this, I set up this views, you simply go to any of these windows under panels, go to layout, and I think I chose three pans, split left, and that splits our screen. And then you go to this each of these windows and then select what to view, in this case camera, and then here we would go down to layout, on the panel, and then outliner, and this is the perspective view. Now this view is looking through the camera, obviously. Okay, now I am using linear workflow. Now let's see how to set up. I already have this lens shader from my previous tutorial. Let's break the connection and create a new one. The way we do that is we would select the camera, and in our attribute editor, not channels, but attribute editor, we'll scroll down. We will scroll down to the Mentor tab, and then for the lens shader, we'll apply a lens shader, and the lens shader is found under Mentor and under lenses, the first one, Exposure Photographic. Play that, and now we have a ton of controls to control our camera and have it behave just like a real world camera. If you're familiar with the DSLR cameras, then this is pretty much it, basically. And okay, now let's see how we can tweak this. First, let's examine our scene. Our scene is illuminated by this one light, and all around it is black. In the real world, this would be a night shot. For a night shot, what kind of settings would we use? First of all, don't touch the CM2 factor. What this does is, when we render our scene, what this does is multiplies the brightness of the render that we already have. I don't want to touch this until I'm done with I've tweaked the other parameters. Okay, let's start with the ISO. The ISO is the sensitivity of the sensor. Lower ISO means darker, higher ISO means brighter. Higher ISO means the sensor is more sensitive to light, basically. And since this is a night shot, we want a higher ISO. We want maybe 1800, but don't use over 2500. You would need to. And then for the camera shutter, the shutter speed, in real camera it's important, but here in Maya, don't worry about it. Just leave it at 100. It doesn't do much really, so just leave it at 100. The F number, also known as the f-stop, this is crucial. The f-stop is the iris on a lens. The wider it is, the more open it is, the more light it lets in, and the closer it is, the less light it lets in. And the higher number means the iris is closed, and the smaller number means it's open. It's opposite to the ISO. The ISO is higher numbers brighter, little numbers darker. With the F number, little numbers brighter, higher numbers darker. So this would be a dark shot, even if it's a day, during the day. ISO of 16. I mean, f-stop of 16 is too closed. So let's bring this back down to maybe 1.2 even. This way the the iris is wide open. Vignetting, don't worry about that. Burn highlights, what this does is it makes the white points, only the white points become wider. And we might need to increase this later on, but for now let's just leave it at the default. Crush black, what this does is crushes the blacks, makes the blacks blacker. Saturation, negative numbers makes it, desaturates it. If at 0 it's black and white, and the higher you go, at 2 it's super saturated. Let's just leave it back to the default 1. The gamma is, since we're using linear workflow, I have it set to 2.2. Otherwise you'd leave this at 1. And let's render and see what we get. Okay, even though we have the right settings, our shadow is still darker, and you might be tempted to increase the intensity of the light, but don't do that yet. You may need to, but not yet. There's a few things we can still do, and one of them is increasing the ISO. Maybe let's try 2000. An ISO of 2000, f number. Let's leave everything the way it is, and save this and render for comparison. Alright, let's compare the two. It's slightly brighter, but not bright enough. Okay, now let's see what the CM squared factor could do for us now. What this, like I said before, what it does is we have an image already. It's bright enough. What the CM squared factor does is multiplies this image, the brightness of this image, by, if we set this to 2, it would multiply it by 2. If we set this to 5, it would multiply it by 5. But don't use this setting. 5 is the highest you should go for the CM squared factor. But for my scene, I will go with maybe 3. Let's see what that does for us. I'll save this for comparison and render. Alright, it's a light brighter if you compare the two, and I'm happy with the way the image looks now, but the light source doesn't look like a light source. It's washed out, and the way we could fix that is by increasing our burn highlights. What this does, like I said before, is just brightens the bright points, the white points, and doesn't affect the mid and the black so much. Actually, it doesn't affect the black at all. The mid maybe a little. So let's try burn highlight of maybe even 1. But the crush black, I don't want it to be too contrasty, so I will leave it the way it is, the default. Save this for comparison, render. More like it. Now the light looks like it's a light source from what we had before, where it is washed out. Okay, now let's see how we could set up this for a day shot. Let's delete the lights, geometries, and let's create a physical scene and sky. Mint array, indirect lighting. Okay, physical scene and sky. Let's create that. That is right. Okay. By default, what I have a script here, a plugin that when I create a physical scene and sky, it gives me the option to create a Maya Exposure Simple or a Maya Photographic. By default, it creates a Maya Exposure Simple. Changing the lens shader manually is labor intensive, so there is this really nice script by DJX. I'll have a link to the script in the description, so you can go and download it and install it. If you need any information on how to install it, just leave me a comment. Okay, I'm gonna, instead of going with the default Mia Exposure Simple, I'll go with my Mia Photographic and hit OK. Now let's hit render and save this, the kind of shot that it will give us. Alright, the shot is really washed out, and as you can see from the shadows, it's around noonish, and it doesn't look like that. So let's see how we can what we could do to fix that. Inside, let's go to our camera, and in the new Mia Exposure Photographic that is created for us by default, let's see what we could do. The ISO of 100, like we talked about before, 100 is the lowest you should use. You could go down to 50, but 100 should be the lowest you should use, which means the light is not sensitive to light that much. If we increase this, then it gets brighter, but we don't want that. What we can fix is, like I mentioned before, 16 is too dark even for daylight. Let's try F number of maybe F8, and yeah, let's leave everything else the way it is, the default. Alright, now our image is looking like it's noon. The shots look noonish now, but our floor is really washed out, and the reason for that is because if you go look at hypershade, I don't think I have a gamma. I don't think the floor is gamma corrected. So if we looked at connections, there is no gamma for the texture, and since we're losing linear workflow, this texture has to be linearized, and I did not do that. The way we could linearize a shot is we'll just go to Maya, and instead of looking for it, let's just type the name gamma, and there we go. It's and we will use this gamma node to bridge between the texture and the shader. And gamma of 1 means no change, and the inverse, to linearize an sRGB gamma, would put the inverse of the gamma. In this case would be 0.455, 0.455. Now the shot is linearized, it looks darker, which is normal, and if we save this for comparison and hit render. Okay, now we have a physically accurate looking shot. We have harsh shadows, nice highlights, the floor is looking realistic, everything looks nice. Till next time, take care.